Hello and welcome. I'm Annette Reeder from thebiblicalnutritionist.com, and today we're going to look at rhubarb. Not only am I going to share with you why this is a food you might want to be looking for in your garden or in the grocery store and add to your diet, some amazing reasons why, but we're also going to make some muffins with it. Have you ever loved strawberry rhubarb pie? Well, today we're going to make strawberry rhubarb muffins. So good. You're going to love them, and I can't wait to share it with you. Well, thank you for letting me share with you God's recipe for excellent health, which always includes being confident in the kitchen. And we're going to combine that with confident with your health as I teach you about rhubarb. Well, before we get started, please hit like, subscribe, and the bell so we can stay connected in the Biblical Nutritionist family. Well, the first steps of our muffins is we're going to go ahead and combine our dry ingredients. So I have measured out 1.5 cups of flour. Now, as you know, I freshly mill the flour. So this can be any of your soft whites. It can even be a hard white. You don't always have to use soft for your muffins. You could use some einkorn, some emmer, you could add a little bit of oat, but not 100% oat. And then you can have spelt or kamut. Have fun with your grains. I've even added millet, and without milling it. Don't mill your millet, just add the little tiny kernels into your baked goods and just adds a fun crunch. Kind of adds that ancient grain type pizzazz to your cooking. So here I have 1.5 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and then I'm adding 1/2 cup of sucanat. Now, as you're watching the video, my sucanat may have a little bit of a different color variation to it because sometimes I mix my sucanats as the dark or the white as I put them together in my canisters. That's the only reason I have a variable in color. So I'm going to mix those all up. I'm going to set that aside. In my other container, well, let me go ahead and add the cinnamon to that too. Stir that in. You can never go wrong with cinnamon. Now remember, with recipes, when you're using freshly milled grains, you can go higher on your flavors. So higher on a vanilla extract, which is not in this, but if you ever use it, higher on cinnamon. Your salt should be fine, but because the grain has such a real flavor to it, it's not just a bland ingredient, you can always use more. All right, so we're going to add 2/3 cup of buttermilk. And to this, we're going to whip in 1 egg. Always want to use the yolk and the white. The yolk is where the life is. The white does have your protein, but so does the yolk, but the yolk has so much more for you. And then we're going to add in some butter, 1/4 cup of butter. Now, if you're in a hurry, just go ahead and blend in also your preserves and your rhubarb, and then it'll just be blended throughout the muffin. But if you're not in a hurry and you want to take time to make it more of a surprise muffin, then I highly recommend it. Okay, so now we're going to mix this into our dry ingredients. And the reason for those of you just learning to cook and have fun in the kitchen is to mix them separately. You really want those dry ingredients to be well incorporated together before you add in the liquid. When you ever take a bite of some baking soda that's too strong in one bite, you know why we do this. Or the salt ends up in one part of the recipe and not all of the recipe. You do not want to eat anything that you make without salt. And so just blend this up. We don't need to overmix it, we just need to lightly blend it, which is why you don't really need a blender for this. I just use my, you can't see it, I use my Fisky, my funnest tool ever in the kitchen. I love to cook, but I don't always have the time that I can devote to it. So I just like little things that cheer up my day, which is a Fisky. Okay, so there we have our muffin batter. Now I'm using the USA pans, and they don't need to be greased. They have a good coating that's safe for you. And so I'm going to go ahead and just use these. I like using a cookie scoop, a batter scoop, and I'm just going to take this and put it into the muffin tins. And you can add just like, if I'm using the small one, I'll put a link to the size that I'm using down below, like a scoop and a half, because this is not a whole lot. And this batter only makes about 9 muffins. So you could do 1 generous scoop, or you could do a scoop and a half. And just go ahead and put that, I'm just going to start with 6. Put that in my muffin tins. This makes such a delicious dessert muffin, or it could be a breakfast muffin. If I wanted to increase the protein to get my family off to a great start, or to get more protein in for my grandkids, I would just add in some protein powder. I obviously would do the vanilla. I don't want too much because I really don't want to take away from my flavor. But even if I add in just a small scoop, maybe 1 scoop, which is 10 grams, that would be a great benefit to these muffins. And it wouldn't change the flavor. Now I have my strawberry preserves. This is preserves that I put up myself. I've already washed my rhubarb. Now rhubarb, it looks the same as celery, but it doesn't bake the same as celery. You don't have the hard strings on the outside. So if you add this to any of your cooking, it's going to really cook down and just be, I want to say the word mush, because it's kind of how it cooks down. Like you'll say, okay, I see the strawberry preserves, I taste the strawberry preserves, I do not taste rhubarb as far as texture goes. So there's no texture issues when this is baked. So if you have little ones that are like totally into texture issues, and which that can be changed, just so you know. But this is just going to cook away, but you'll have just that fun, sour, tart flavor mixed in with your sweet flavor. It's a perfect blend. So whoever was the first person who put strawberries and rhubarb together, they were brilliant. So my mom always made a strawberry rhubarb pie every summer, and we always looked forward to it. So again, how you chop up your rhubarb is not going to be super important because it is going to cook away, but I do want it equally divided up in my muffins. So I'm just going to chop up these 3 stalks of rhubarb. I just got this out of my garden. I just picked it this morning, and I consider this free food because it's a perennial. It grows every year. So I only had to plant it one time, and I get rhubarb every year. It's kind of like asparagus. Once you plant it, you get to enjoy it year after year after year. And to me, that's considered free food. All right, so I have this in a small dish. So let me put it in a little bit bigger dish so I can mix in my rhubarb together with my preserves. It may look like way too much for the preserves, but like I just said, it's going to cook away. And all you're going to see is the preserves. So I do make my own preserves. That way I can control the amount of sugar. So just mix that up really well. There we go. And then, lost a little bit on the counter. There we go. So I'm going to use my scoop and just put some of this right in the center of my muffin. And then it's going to be like that surprise that you bite into and you find it the inside filled with goodies. And then I'll just put some more batter on top to bury it. And I can't wait to read your comments how you like this. This recipe is out of my cookbook, The Healthy Treasures Cookbook. This is on page 57. So you can watch this video and make notes in that page of everything I'm teaching you. And there's also different variations that you can make as well for this recipe. So now that I have my rhubarb in there, I'm going to go ahead and finish topping this with some more batter. Kind of tuck that in. You're going to bake this at 400 for 20 minutes. And you can eat them warm right out of the oven, or you can wait and chill them cold for a dessert. Now, while I put these in the oven, I'm just going to go ahead and bake these, get these started. I'll go ahead and finish up this tray. Now, before we put these in the oven, I'm just going to go ahead and top it with just some grains of sucanat and some cinnamon. You might already have this mixed together. And that just kind of gives a really sweet taste into that first bite. And let me sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon on top, kind of as a garnish. You could use other jellies and preserves instead of strawberries. You could use blueberries. You could use a fig, whatever you would like. All right, now they're ready to go in the oven. Now, if you have leftover rhubarb that you didn't use in your muffins, or if you have leftover in your garden that you're not really ready to cook with, go ahead and put it in a freezer bag. I have also dehydrated rhubarb, and it works perfect. Throw them in soups, muffins, pancakes, cookies, just anything you can. And just make sure you get all of the air out. Zip that up, put that in the freezer, and just toss it in the next thing you cook. It is such, like I said, it's a free food. Let's talk about the health of rhubarb. This is going to surprise you. Think about rhubarb, it has a bitter flavor. Anytime you have a bitter flavor, that means it has a cleansing effect. Well, rhubarb actually cleanses your blood. And because it cleanses your blood, it's also going to affect your liver, your spleen, your gallbladder, and your digestive system. So it's going to have a cleansing effect on all areas of your body, specifically your bloodstream. And so it has more of an accumulative effect. What I mean by that is you want to incorporate specific foods into your diet daily so you have this continual effect. You don't just eat one muffin, it's like, oh, I cleanse my blood for the next month. Doesn't work like that. So we need to eat foods that are very cleansing for the blood on a daily basis. That even includes red raspberries. I have raspberries growing right now coming out from my garden, and that has been a delight as well. So I could have made this a raspberry rhubarb muffin, and then I would have that. But to get the best cleansing effect, you want to eat the rhubarb and the raspberries raw. Yes, just fresh. And they taste really good in your salads. So chop your rhubarb stalks up really good, nice and fine, toss it on your salad, and enjoy that on a daily basis while they're nice and fresh. So besides that, they're also very good for cleansing the digestive system, which means if you have a child or an adult who's dealing with constipation, just adding some rhubarb into the salad or a smoothie, something like that, where you're getting it nice and fresh and raw, will have a very cleansing effect and can help loosen the bowels. It doesn't do it to the effect of, oh no, we can't leave the house. No, it helps to do it in a natural effect, which is how God's foods work. Now, as far as the leaves, they have a lot higher level of oxalates. And so some people are susceptible to that, and it might not be a good idea to eat the leaves. Some people just say, oh, they're poisonous. Well, they're not poisonous. They're not going to kill you, but they have a higher level of oxalates, and some people are sensitive to oxalates. Oxalates are not bad food. It's just some people are sensitive to it. How do you know if your blood is toxic? Well, there are very specific symptoms. And typically, if you've addressed everything there is to address and you're still having some of these symptoms, it might just be that your blood is toxic. And so you need to eat foods that are very cleansing. There's a whole list of foods, mostly herbs, that are very cleansing to the bloodstream. But if your bloodstream is toxic, you're going to have skin issues. The skin is the first representation of illness. So we should always pay attention if we have any skin issues. So you have skin issues. You have allergies, headaches, chronic fatigue, pain, cancer, mental disorders, or dementia. Now, this is not a totally inclusive list. There's a lot more issues that can be added to this, but it's a generalization to give you an idea. Pain is another one too. So we always want our blood to be cleansed, not just spiritually by the blood of the Lamb, but physically so that we can enjoy every day. Remember, our skin is an outward sign of what's going on inside. So we always want to have beautiful skin no matter what age you are. Well, don't these just look delicious? Definitely, it's a food that you can feed your family and feel good about, knowing you're giving them the goodness that God has given us in the foods that He created. Well, enjoy this, and remember, thanks for letting me share with you God's recipe for excellent health, which includes rhubarb. Thanks for watching. Be sure and hit like, subscribe, and the bell, and check out our courses at Biblical Nutrition Academy. And if you just want a free course to get started, go to thebiblicalnutritionist.com, sign up for 7 steps to amazing biblical health. Take your time through that. Master each step before you move on, because it truly is life-changing. Thanks for watching.